Okay, let's talk about the Kings, who are 12-5 after their rough start to open the season. Gonna spend a lot of time on the offense because that has been the biggest story so far, but I definitely want to talk about their defense a bit because I do think it's been pretty interesting. But you got to start with De'Aaron Fox, and man, that guy is shooting an insane percentage on jump shots that are, I guess, on the border of the paint or maybe 1 foot within the paint, and whether they are turnaround jumpers or pull ups, or it just seems like that shot has been automatic for him this year. His three ball has been better, his free throws have been better as well, and as far as how he's getting his shots, well, of course, we can talk about the Domantas Sabonis handoff actions, whether it's with De'Aaron Fox or basically everybody on the entire team. But they'll also have some actions where Fox will start from the corner, get a little momentum, and then flow into a handoff action with Sabonis. Another thing with Fox, too, is not that he never did this, but I feel like he is tapping a bit more into getting the defender on his back and playing it a little slower around screens. Sometimes, again, it's not like he never did this, but I feel like he's been a little bit better at it this season. And of course, when he's got a head of steam, he can be one of the fastest guys in the league, potentially the fastest with the ball. But it's not just that. And again, if he keeps on shooting, what's the number right now? Basketball Reference tells me it's basically 60% from 3 feet to 10 feet. NBA.com will say, I think, about 54% in the paint, but not right at the rim. Then he's got to be making an all-star bid, right? His last few games have not been as huge with his scoring, but I'm not really that concerned. I mean, he had an efficient game against the Pacers. Next, we move on to Sabonis, and I mean, it's DHOs everywhere, man. Of course, it's with De'Aaron Fox, but Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk, two guys who have fit in beautifully into this offense. And I mentioned those two with those handoffs with Sabonis. You know, those guys, they can keep the play moving to whether it's finishing at the rim or having a kick out to somebody else as well. You know, they're not just catch and shoot guys. And I should have mentioned that in the beginning too. There's so much shooting on this team now that the spacing is just kind of awesome, you know. You've also got Harrison Barnes here, whose three ball has actually been a bit down this year, but I'm not too concerned about that one because he's been good for a long time from there. I'll get to Keegan Murray in a second, but I got off track from Sabonis. I think the most fun thing is when Sabonis brings the ball up court after a rebound, so it just throws an extra dynamic into this team's offense. And then as far as his scoring, I mean, you know what you're getting with Sabonis. It's somewhere between about 16 to 20 points a night, where he's going to be diving to the rim, he's going to be getting offensive rebounds, and while you're not just going to throw the ball to him in the post possession after possession, he finds his opportunities. I mean, maybe he's looking for one of those DHOs and the big is backing up off of him a little bit. He'll take that space, put his shoulder into the guy, and then get to one of his hook shots. That happened a lot in their last game against the Clippers where Zubats was dropping on him a little bit on those. The other thing that's going on with this offense is I feel like there's a lot of read and react situations, so maybe there will be, like at the very beginning of a play, there might be some little off-ball action while Sabonis is at the elbow or something. And if, let's just say it's like a down screen, and then let's say it's for Kevin Huerter. If Kevin Huerter's open, he can shoot it. If not, maybe that will then immediately flow into like a Huerter-Sabonis pick and roll. But then that can also lead to, okay, well then you flip it to Sabonis on a bounce pass, then he might kick it to Keegan Murray or somebody for three, or Terrence Davis or whoever, or Sabonis can finish. You know, it's just a whole lot of options. They've also had a lot of cuts, so it'll be like, I don't know, Harrison Barnes cutting from the corner, or Keegan Murray or Huerter, or Malik Monk, or Davion Mitchell might have an opportunity, you know. I do want to talk about Keegan for a bit. So Keegan has cooled off a bit from his decently hot start to the season and the preseason a little bit. He has been dealing with some off-the-court stuff. The three ball, we'll see. I mean, I've looked at a lot of his three-point misses recently, and I mean, there were a couple where I was like, ooh, I don't know if I like that shot. Just close defender. It's not like the shot clock was winding down or anything. But a lot of them have been open in the flow of the offense, and I think his off-ball movement is still there. So some of this is just going to be him making the open ones just off of De'Aaron Fox creating a catch-and-shoot for him or stuff like that. But the other thing, too, is I think he is currently going through his, this is the NBA stretch that pretty much every rookie goes through, where maybe it's the constant travel, maybe it's the speed of the game and all that, to where sometimes he just looks a bit overwhelmed. He just looks like a normal guy who, again, is going through some off-the-court stuff in his first season on a team that's trying to make the playoffs. He did go off in his last game, though, so we'll give him that one. To get to the defense, so starting on October 29th, which was the first day after their 0-4 start to the season, they're like 16th in defense, tied, or effectively tied with a whole bunch of teams there, which that was the hope, right? You could be middle of the pack on that side of the floor. And I don't think there's anything particularly adventurous, I guess, defensively, although to be fair, in their recent Pacers game, To start it out, they had Harrison Barnes guarding Miles Turner and Sabonis on Jalen Smith, and I was like, ooh, that's a little different. But for the most part, like Sabonis, when he's guarding screens, it's like a mix of drop and him being slightly below the level of the screen. I guess the difference really just comes from who they're facing. The other noticeable thing is that typically Harrison Barnes is the low man, so he's helping from the corner, being that backline defense, and he's done a pretty good job, at least in the possessions I've seen, of closing out to his guy when teams try to beat him on that. And besides that, I think they're going to be switching when it's just a simple little off-ball action. If it's more like guys running around stagger screens, double screen out of the corner, then you might ask him to chase a little bit more, but it's nothing too particularly out there, I would say, which I think is fine. I mean, they're also controlling the defensive glass. Within that, I mean, look, Devin Booker torched him the other game, and I think their defense on him was pretty okay. I think he made some particularly tough shots, including one step back long 2 over, I think it was Davion Mitchell and on the baseline. Their recent win against the Grizzlies was interesting. Ja Morant had 20 points in the fourth quarter. The Grizzlies did not shoot well from 3 in that game. I thought the Kings did a pretty good job of closing out, as basic as that sounds. Desmond Bane did not play in that game, so they got a little bit of a break there. But also, their opponent 3-point attempt situation is interesting to me because opponents are shooting well from 3 against them. On average, it's not every single game, of course, but they're also not shooting that many threes against the Kings. They're not giving up a lot of attempts. And so when I look at that, I think a lot of it really is that they just don't ask their defense to be in crazy rotation. Look, you go down the roster, I don't think anybody pictured these guys being a top defense. Who's their best on-ball defender? Davion Mitchell? Well, Davion can't do everything, but overall defensively they've been good enough, and that's the key. The last thing to point out is, I guess, an update on the Halliburton-Sabonis deal. I would imagine the Kings feel okay about it right now. Of course, I was very negative about that deal for the Kings, and I mean, their vision for the team basically was, well, we can get the best version of De'Aaron Fox, and also Sabonis can bring us a new element, and okay, the Pacers are also very happy with Halliburton, so that's where the move's at right now.